Would you do that to children just because children are bad? Would you try and put them to sleep?
Cats are a complicated creature, culturally speaking. So most cultures have had interesting relationships with cats. In our culture, there's a love-hate relationship with cats. People sometimes will do terrible things to cats because of their fear of them or their misunderstanding of them. There's a recent case nearby where a TNR community discovered cats that had been mutilated, and they brought them in, and in fact, one of them had to be euthanized. The injuries were so severe. TCU had a cat crisis, and we found out that the cats that were living on campus were being rounded up and killed in the summer. They were living in dorm spaces, they were living under buildings, etc., and they were not being cared for. And there was a woman working on campus at the time who was familiar with TNR.
The physical plant trapped 34 cats and kittens out of the Worth Hills area that year, and they got sent to Fort Worth Animal Control. Several of them didn't make it there alive, and so after that we got together and started our group. We found some like-minded people on campus like Dr. Thompson. Frogs and Cats Together. It took me a long time to come up with that acronym. It spells fact, and we definitely wanted frogs in there, and we wanted to talk about the cats, and it was just, because there was so much campus ignorance, we felt like fact was a huge deal.
But I also now am a volunteer with the city of Fort Worth, who has embraced and adopted TNR. Fort Worth now takes in cats that are trapped, that are wild or feral, and they spay and neuter them, and then they call on volunteers to re-release those cats to their home environments. And it's been very successful. And in fact, someone said to me the other day, "Where are all the cats?" And I said, TNR works, so we don't have that many cats on campus now.
The idea is to create that collaboration and to work together so that we're able to not just bring these cats in here and just have euthanasia as a solution, because that doesn't really work.
So we have a lovely human being that's part of the citywide group, and she runs a kind of rescue hospice facility in her home. She's expanded, and she has what we call catios, cat bungalows. And she has FELV and FIV cats separated from one another, and they live out their lives in her retreat.
About 5 years ago, I guess, my husband and I had 2 cats. And we used to go to a restaurant and we'd see cats out back. And I heard about trap, neuter, return. And so I started trapping them and bringing them back. And that's how I got involved in that. And when some of them weren't able to come back, I started bringing them here, you know. And I never had any intention of having more than 2 cats to begin with, but it kind of grew. And so now, over the years, what we have is a place called Molly's Cat Place. And we have, right now, about 29 cats, I guess. I haven't counted them lately. But they are basically older cats or cats that have problems that make them unacceptable in a lot of people's eyes. And if you get them out in a shelter, they will sometimes euthanize them because, you know, they're not gonna move on. So I thought this was a good place. This was something that I could do, is take these cats and give them a good life. One of the most important things in my life now, and this is going to sound trivial, but it is making these cats, giving them the best life I can. They're almost like my kids, you know, and people say they want to do that for their kids. I want to do that for my cats.
Feral cats have a place in society, and they don't want to be touched, they don't want to be mothered, they don't want to be coddled or anything. They just want to be outside. And playing a mice is a game, and that's one of Peggy's slogans that we tell all the new barn owners that we take our cats out to.
Barn cats take spayed and neutered cats that have had a negative test for feline leukemia and a rabies and a distemper shot. They come to us from various groups and organizations and animal services, whatever. And then we find them a place to live in the country. They want barn cats because they don't want to put out poisons. Everybody's got a rat problem. It's particularly bad the last year or so because of the drought.
They're taking control of a bad situation for a farmer that doesn't have the means by any other way. And this is naturally green pest control.
And the final straw was when I opened our front door one day and there was a rat on the front porch. I completely freaked out and we're like, okay, we're getting more cats.
So we interview them over the phone. If it sounds like a good deal, we load up caging, make an appointment of course, load up caging the cats, etc., and deliver the cats to the property. They go into a cage for a 2-week reload period on the property. The people maintain the cage during that time frame. At 2 weeks they release them. At 3 weeks we go back and get our stuff. All our cats are spayed and neutered, and so they're not running off looking for love. So they'll stay in the barn and they'll take care of business and live out their lives.
Well, I think that for most societies, you can tell how civilized they are by how they treat animals, and just rounding up stray cats and euthanizing them seems pretty inhumane. The idea that your humanity is tied to the way you treat other creatures, other living creatures, the lowest of the low, the little cat behind the restaurant eating out of the dumpster, deserves to be treated like a living, breathing animal too.
TNR is not for every cat. Sometimes they've been pulled from really bad neighborhoods. I don't think they should really be returned to those neighborhoods, so that's when we come into play. And these cats have a job to do. So we find them a nice barn to live in, and they get food, water, medical care as required, and they have a job with benefits.
Well, the cat situation in Fort Worth is probably comparable to any other large city our size. There's always going to be the feral cat communities. There's going to be cats that are roaming everywhere for a number of reasons. It could be that the cats were born into a feral community. It could be that someone passed away and the cats just were left to fend for themselves. People abandon cats all the time. You have to realize a feral cat is considered a wild animal. And a wild animal will live where there are resources. There's some kind of a shelter there, there's food, and there's a water source. And that is why they're in that general vicinity.
In the city, the food sources are ample. And so these feral cats, they don't really have to hustle that much. All they got to do is find one neighborhood man or woman that's willing to feed them, and so if food sources are adequate, they reproduce and reproduce and reproduce. And cats are very reproductively active, so they will attract the male cats. They'll become bred. Within 61 days, they have kitties. When they have kitties, within about 2 to 3 weeks, while they're still nursing the baby kitties, they come back in the heat again.
Most people think it sounds like a great idea once you start talking about it. We're going to vaccinate them, we're going to get them neutered, and everything's going to be happy and hunky-dory. Most people don't immediately think, but what about the wildlife?
Feral cats, or free-ranging cats, impact our native wildlife populations. They feed upon rodents and other small mammals. They feed upon songbirds. Even feeding upon insects puts them in competition with other animals that also feed on insects, but cats aren't native.
All of these different types of ecosystems we have here in Texas, those evolved over a lot of time. And so all the organisms that reside there, the plants and animals, they'll work together in that ecosystem. Our cats that we have at home weren't a part of that. They did not evolve here. They do not reside here naturally. They got here because of humans.
The only defense we can give to the birders is that the cats are already there. If we don't do what we do, there are more cats and there's more bird predation. So we have to work together.
It has created all over the United States, in fact all over the world, a bit of a problem. There's several diseases that are especially feline leukemia and feline immunodeficiency virus that are spread by bites and scratching.
Also, we're concerned about human health and safety. These animals are known to have a lot of diseases, and some of those are zoonotic diseases, meaning they can transfer to humans.
So you have to look at it kind of just in a balanced way and think, okay, I can't solve all the problems of the world here, but I can solve the ones that affect me. And those that affect me are the ones that are coming into my shelter. What is a better solution than just euthanasia for every cat that comes in here? And our solution is creating this TNR program and working with our community and encouraging and educating our communities.
And a lot of times the people don't know that if the cat is taken away, that the cat's going to be euthanized. Once they know that, a lot of times they come around and they say, okay, well, it's all right that if you take them, neuter them, and bring them back, it'll be okay. We can get along with it.
If it comes time for us to make decisions on euthanasia, we always judge it based on the individual animal, because that's a final decision you can't take back.
Trap kill is not humane. It's not effective. It's a drain on taxpayer money because it's $100+ every time the city has to trap and kill a cat in your yard.
We really have seen a sea change in sort of the positive way that TNR is being handled. So now the city isn't just euthanizing any wild cat or any feral cat.
They were very concerned about nuisance, what the neighbors were going to think, what they were going to do with all the nuisance calls. And that's what's so nice about the director that they have now, because she doesn't care. But she's more interested in education. She's interested in her officers going out and educating.
We started the feral cat program in November of 2014, and our live release rate was right around 66, 67%. And now with the feral cat program in place, we are roughly at about 84%. It's an enormous amount of lives being saved. It shows that you're really doing something different and you're doing something good, and more animals are leaving your shelter alive.
Sometimes we, in the animal welfare business, the animal saving business, become overwhelmed with the amount of death out there. The Humane Society of the United States calls it compassion fatigue.
I wish I could do a lot more. It's so small. 30 cats, 25 cats. We've definitely helped in specific situations where people that have contacted me, with cats that were going to die, we've saved those cats. And we can do that every once in a while, but not very often.
We're involved in these incredibly important and intensely difficult moral decisions on a day-to-day basis.
I'm a biologist that loves animals. Sometimes your love of animals means that you need to do what is right, and for your love of animals and how they fit into the system requires that you disassociate yourself from the individual. And sometimes an individual needs to be removed, euthanized, whatever, for the good of the system. That's what it all comes down to.
Ultimately, we just, as a natural resource agency, understand how detrimental the TNR colonies are. And ultimately, we don't want those going on because you're somewhat subsidizing these killers, these predators out there. They're getting fed and they're continuing to just have their fun and kind of run amok.
I don't think there's another way to handle the feral cat population that is humane and that works. It would be nice if everybody had a sanctuary like this and we could take them all in.
TNR is a great way of dealing with feral cat populations in urban environments. It reduces the overall number of cats. It makes sure that the cats that are out there are healthy, not diseased cats.
You're pro-TNR, you love cats, and if you're not TNR, you hate cats, and you don't want them, and you want them all euthanized, and that's not the case. We want what's best for them, but we got to think cats are involved with all the other animals out there. We can't just put cats above everybody else.
It helps with our population. It helps reduce suffering. It helps reduce the number of animals born that have nowhere to go. I think that it's a responsible way for any community to get on board with trying to manage a population of animals instead of just killing them. That's not a management.
Would you do that to children just because children are bad? Would you try and put them to sleep? These are God's animals, just like God makes children. I mean, they have a purpose in the world.